Chris Ballard was on in hour number one, and joining us here is one of our favorites. And by the way, that was the royal we as well I was using because I just love this guy. And I'm not just saying that because he's appearing on the screen. He's the general manager of your Los Angeles Rams, Les Snead. How are you, Les? Good to see you.
Who's house?
How are you?
I'm good, Rich. How's it going?
I'm doing fine. Are you in your office? Is that where you are? Is that where you are right now?
Artist Twyman's office. This is Artist Twyman's office.
Oh, you're crashing his spot, huh? Okay.
You know what? His Zoom seems to be more consistent than mine.
What's going on?
Yeah. Sometimes you make an appointment in my Zoom and it's crashing, and I'm probably less technical than some. So
okay,
this is a good, safe space to do these types of events.
All right, let's just jump right into it to start, Les. I don't know what you're doing with your picks anymore. One minute you're effing them, the next one you're collecting them, and this time around you didn't take a first rounder because you took one in next year's draft. I mean, walk me through that decision. End of the first round, Falcons ring you up, and you got 10 minutes to figure this thing out, Les.
You know, each of those scenarios are case by case. In this particular draft, though, based on probably whether we were a little more specific in terms of probably positions we were looking for, players we were looking for, even our needs. We did feel like there was a possibility, good probability, that we might trade back at 26 based on the way the draft may go. That did come to fruition. What we probably weren't planning for was we felt like, okay, there's a chance we're going to move back, collect some more picks in this year's draft with teams. But when Atlanta came calling for a future one, we felt like it was better for us at this particular moment to delay the gratification. We somewhat passed the marshmallow test. And take a pick in the next year's draft and still trade back.
So, again, everybody's going to be sitting here starting to think that you've already identified somebody in next year's draft that you want to save your powder for. Is that a fair assumption, Les? Right
On
now?
Speculation for the next 364, 63, 62 days. If I knew who was coming out in the draft, that would help. That's always based on all that's going on in college football. Probably a little tougher to predict who might or might not come back or who may stay for next year based on the NIL and those players being able to get paid. So that's still to be determined.
Well, what's the number of days, Chris? You've already figured that out?
Next year's first round is April 23rd in Pittsburgh, so we're 358 days.
There you go, 358 days, Les. So you could keep track of the number of days that we're going to keep talking about it in the media. You know what I mean? Just giving you,
I understand
that information. Well, because
good content, right? Hopefully it's interesting.
Thank you very much for you. You understand, I am a content searcher. But in all honesty, Les, I mean, so many Rams fans are white knuckling the quarterback situation, is seemingly like on an annual basis, and this might be something that you have in your back pocket in case it's another white knuckler next year. I mean, what can you tell us on that front about Stafford?
I think it's been clear. Matthew's obviously we call it the back nine of his career. How many years he goes? We hope it's more than let's call it more than less. But we've all talked about it, so we know that his era is coming to an end. But I would say this: priority number one is making the most of the Matthew Stafford era. Why wouldn't you? That's why you want a quarterback of his caliber, right? You want to make the most of that era, whatever that may be. But we're also well aware that there is a future without Matthew, and how we navigate that one, is to be determined case by case. But we're aware of both scenarios.
So
they're going on simultaneously.
Right. So the Matthew now era, does that lead to Terrence Ferguson in the second round for you, Les?
Definitely. It didn't. The answer would be yes. We definitely felt like, and I think Terrence will also, let's call it, there's a good possibility that he's the heir apparent to Tyler Higbee whenever Tyler's career is over. So there's an element of now, and then there's also an element of future with Terrence as well.
And then the running back room, you added a kid from your alma mater, Jarquez Hunter. How do you see the running back?
And he doesn't play basketball. Isn't that,
How about that?
I mean, we're a basketball school now.
I'm aware of that. I noticed that for sure. And
I think maybe we did beat Michigan.
Yeah, I know. You did beat Michigan. Can confirm, Les. You also drafted a Chris Paul, so maybe you got basketball on the brain. But that's for another day. What do you see in this kid Hunter? And what you can expect?
Being an Auburn fan, he was, just as from a fan's perspective, from the time he got there to now, he's just been a fun player to watch. in terms of just how he runs his running style. He's one of those guys that ignites a crowd, ignites an audience. The way he breaks tackles, he runs with joy. And then if he does break those tackles, he has the ability to hit a double, triple, take it the distance. So we do think the way this NFL season's going, the amount of wear and tear that goes into playing running back, that having a committee and a committee with different skill sets only helps us continue being able to run the football like we want to run it.
Yeah, I mean, he's fourth on the all-time Auburn rushing list behind guys named Bo Jackson, Cadillac Williams, and James Brooks. I've heard of them. So
that's a great list.
Yeah, man.
I like that James Brooks pops in there. That's a classic.
That is
He's pre-Bo Jackson.
But and that's pre-Les Snead, correct? As well?
Very pre-Les Snead.
Okay,
I was probably in middle school or maybe even elementary school pulling for James Brooks.
Just want to make sure you are younger than you look. So let's just put it this way. In all seriousness, you watched the Michigan-Ohio State tape, I imagine, for your second and fourth round picks as well. Josiah Stewart and Ty Hamilton to add to your defense. What'd you see in these kids, Les?
Well, the neat thing on Josiah is very similar to some of the players we have on our defensive line now, if not all of them. Is he started in the group of five and decided to take a chance on upgrading it per se and going to the power four. And when we've seen those players make that step up, get to the next level of the video game where the competition's a little stiffer and still be able to produce like you did at the lesser or lower level. That's always fun to see because that's what it takes to have success in the NFL. No matter where you went to school in college, whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, somewhere like when you do come to the NFL, you're definitely if you're playing the old school Frogger game on Atari, guess what? When you come to the NFL, the cars are just moving faster. So to get across that highway with that joystick, it's a different game. So it's neat to always see those players take that step. Big Ty Hamilton may be one of the lesser sexy players that Ohio State's had over these last few years, but he's always been a consistent, stable foundation right there in the middle of the defense, and that always transitions to the NFL.
I got to be honest with you, Les. If somebody had told me, over under on Les Snead making a Frogger reference in the interview, I'd have taken the under. Were you a Frogger guy?
I would have taken the under too.
Were you the Frogger?
Even I could have walked down to knowing that I was coming to do this interview.
Yes, sir.
I would have bet the under too in Vegas.
Were you a Frogger guy,
and I had
Les?
control of the whole situation.
Were you a Frogger guy, Les? Were you really? I was a Frogger, maybe more of a Pitfall guy. Is that what it was called? But yes. Well,
Frogger was
Pitfall. I remember that. That was the game in the jungle, right? Pitfall.
That was the game in the jungle.
Yeah, man. Okay. I see you.
So
Les.
anytime in those days you go, I'm sure that's how these new video games are too. The higher you get in the next level of the video game, the faster it goes.
Oh my gosh. Les Snead, the GM of the Los Angeles Rams here on the Rich Eisen Show. The general sense, Les, and I will ask you as the general manager, is some teams are on the rise and some teams are trying to get back, and then some teams are right there. There's a general sense that you're right there, Les. Do you feel that way? That you're right there? You've won a championship before with Stafford. You've added Devontae Adams. I understand Cooper Kupp is a guy that was part of the DNA, and he's no longer there. But do you feel that you're right there, Les? Are you right there?
Here's where I think we are. The people on this roster, right? We all have the efficacy, right? Whether you're a part of that Super Bowl team, whether you've won a game in the playoffs or not, whether you've won a division and gotten there. A lot of our players on this roster have accomplished all of those right things. So there's a belief that we can do that. What we all know is when 2024 season ended, ball rolls all the way back down to the bottom of the hill. And you got to push that boulder all the way back up, step by step by step. We're just now in phase one. That's where we're at. But yes, this team does have the efficacy. It knows and it believes that it can have success. The key now is doing all the steps and all the things between now and then to let's call it reestablish the chemistry, because this is a new team and 2025 is a new season.
Yeah, I mean, the 2024 season ended in the Philadelphia snow with you coming the closest to beating the eventual Super Bowl champs. I mean, you had them right then and there, and obviously the ball didn't bounce your way. But you were right there in a way that no other teams were. And, you as a GM can only do what you can do and then hand it off to McVay. And that's why I'm wondering, do you think you've handed off a team to McVay that's right there, Les?
I think it's all of us, whether it's handing it off or all of us just working together to engineer the most let's call it competent collective we can. So, that's the interesting thing. We were talking to a basketball coach who stopped through here yesterday, who was recruiting John Shire. So he was at Duke, but we were talking about his law. Basically, the NFL playoffs very similar to the NCAA tournament, right? You're one and done, and no, hey, the ball can bounce a lot of different ways. You can get close, you can get blown out, but whatever the case may be, when that game's over, for that season, if you're on the short end of the stick in terms of points accumulated for that game, that ball rolls all the way back down to the bottom. So we were close. Doesn't mean we'll be close next year. I always say this: when you start a new season, even though we got to, let's call it 13 yards away from, and I say this, we could have scored. We were 13 yards away from maybe taking the lead with an extra point. We would have still had to kick off and keep them from maybe kicking a field goal or a walk-off winner. Point being is, no matter that ended, it doesn't mean that, we'll just walk in and end up 13 yards away from beating the Eagles next year, in the divisional round, and all we got to do is complete the pass and we win. So there's a lot of steps between let's call it now and getting to the tournament, as we say, as we call it.
Few minutes left with Les Snead, the GM of the Los Angeles Rams, here on the Rich Eisen Show. The best idea I've heard on how to fix whatever's going on with these wild, nasty, awful prank calls during the draft, Les, came from somebody in your household. Les, I don't know if you've seen this. I know you're not on Twitter, but I know the individual who has tweeted this out, Kara Henderson Snead, that FaceTime draft calls is the solve for the prank crisis. We all win. What do you think?
Rich, you'll appreciate this. I know she mentioned that. She said it. I didn't. This is the first time that I've discovered that she actually tweeted that out. But when she did say that, you know what? I said, that's a brilliant idea. I would even say this, we engineer policy for prank calls that those are fewer and far between, and definitely don't need to happen on that day. But It was also a really neat idea on, wow, why haven't we been FaceTiming? And I'm sure there might be teams who do that, but it does seem like a cool thing that, right, the draftee could see the general manager, their next head coach, right? If you're the Chiefs and all of a sudden there's Big Red on the FaceTime,
right?
Like number one, that's not a prank. Big Red's Big Red, right? You just can't act like Big Red. But then it's also cool to see because you've been watching him all these years win a lot of Super Bowls. So that's a cool moment. Great idea by Kara. Glad she, even Artist is glad she tweeted that one out. There's some times, Rich, where she kind of, she threads the needle on whether Artist is going to kind of text her and say, I'm not sure I would have tweeted that.
Yeah, makes sense. And I imagine with you having John Shire there yesterday, did Kara, was it a take Kara to work day yesterday? Did she show up?
It was, unfortunately, I say that either unfortunately or fortunately, she was flying, she was going with a friend to Europe. So she was not able to connect with John. But for everyone who's trying to figure out the John Shire Kara connect, Kara's a Duke alum.
Yes.
Obviously, John's a Duke basketball coach. So we've gotten to know John over these last few years. And he was out recruiting, trying to, let's call it, engineer the next version of the Duke Blue Devils. Because it's interesting. That's a whole different world there, right? Where they have some of the best, right, young players on the planet. And they come in for basically, I call it a summer semester, a fall semester, and probably half of a spring semester, and then they're going to the NBA, and you got to start over again.
Well, as you know, Les, I've known Kara for over 20 years, having met her at ESPN, and her only drawback is she's a Dookie. But that's coming from me. That's literally the only flaw I think your wife has, Les, being a Michigan guy.
From a Michigan man, I can understand.
You understand the spite. You get it.
I understand the spite.
Before I let you go, I need a confirmation of this story because, our crack staff makes sure that every interview that we conduct and the entire show has production value, Les. We saw this photograph on our Getty Image account with the caption, Los Angeles Rams general manager Les Snead. There's a photograph of what looks like a championship ring in the foreground and you in the background. Les Snead recalls a story about the time the team shared a Seattle hotel with a furry convention. Is this accurate? Was this actually what was happening in this photograph, and did that actually happen, Les?
I can say this. I'm not sure what I'm talking about in that photograph, but I do know this. Not only have we shared a hotel in Seattle with a furry convention, I think we've done it now twice. I think it's been twice. I might be wrong, but you know what? I can't say that.
Wait a minute. You're in Seattle and this is the scene that the Rams in town? Really?
Let me tell you this too. You think about a football, it's September, it's October, you get to December football and you really need a lift.
Yeah.
And just think, you've been traveling to the same hotel. It's kind of, it's getting there's some doldrums going on. Then you show up in the lobby there and all of a sudden, you know what? We got a second win to finish this thing out. I mean, there's actually people, these are actually human beings that showed up and dressed like, so it's, and I can say this, if you talk about people who are passionate,
yes,
they're passionate. That's a costume party. I mean, that's not just, hey, I had to go to this costume party and get something out of the closet. That's well thought out, well-intended intentionality.
I've heard of teams trying to get the road team off their game by pulling a fire alarm at 4 a.m. in the hotel. This is next level, because if it's twice now, the Seattle Seahawks are doing this to you, Les. I got to be honest with you, straight up.
That's that was back in the Pete Carroll era. So this seems like something Pete might do.
Gamesmanship,
little game theory. There's always some gray area in the game theory.
Oh my gosh!
Some of the best coaches always let's call it take the gray and make the gray an edge.
You're taking notes, I am sure. Les, thanks for the time, brother. Great to see you. We'll chat again soon. Thanks again.
Oh, and the under on the furry convention being brought up, I would have bet the under on that as well.
You never know when you come on here on this program. So, all right, good to see you. Say bonjour to Carol when you speak to her.
We'll do.
You got it. Let's Snead, everybody. The GM of the Los Angeles Rams.
Whose house?
Confirming. No, it's the furry's house.
Furry's, there. Yeah.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.